Everybody, as we get ready to start our meeting, I'd ask you to check your cell phones and make sure they're silent or turned off so we avoid the interruptions. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. We're going to call this meeting to order. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Ray Sayer, if you would please lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And I checked my phone just to make sure. At this time, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence. It's been a year since our Director of Flood Control suddenly passed away, so we have a moment of silence for John Hayes. Okay, thank you very much. We miss, John was a good guy. We miss him in our organization every day. No offense to you, Alan, if you're in here. We're going to call item B is adoption of the agenda. Mr. Manager.
Chair, member of the board, we're going to table item G2. G2 is a discussion possible action to approve right of entry agreement with UNC Electric Incorporated to access and evaluate county property for the Rio Rico to Harshaw transmission line project. This will give staff more time to review and possibly understand the agreement. We'll discuss it with legal and obtain community feedback.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I will go ahead and move that we adopt the agenda with item G2 table till a further future meeting and allow chair to deviate as necessary.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item C, call to the public. Mr. Ray Sayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Supervisors. My name is Ray Sayer. I'm representing County Emergency Management today. I'm going to talk about a tabletop exercise we'll be having for our local emergency planning committee that will be held here on Thursday. Our local emergency planning committee is highly recognized as one of the top performing in the entire United States by EPA Region 9. Real people, hardly anybody knows about that, but we're the real deal. What an LEPC does, its crux is really focused on hazardous materials mitigation, response, recovery, that sort of stuff. But our LEPC is an all hazards LEPC, so we take a look at everything. Some of the things that would fall under an LEPC plan happened recently: nitric acid spill in Tucson, evacuation of Scottsdale, and then what we're seeing right now is Lahaina, Maui, going on as well. Wildfires, conflagrations, the Camp Fire of 2018 in California. So what we'll be doing, I'll be the facilitator for the exercise. It'll be 10 o'clock on Thursday upstairs in classroom A. It will involve a hazardous materials and a rapidly moving fire within Santa Cruz County. And it's a facilitator-led discussion. That doesn't mean that you have to talk. You can come and listen. And a lot of people are very uncomfortable with hazardous materials, and that's why you have experts and subject matter experts within the county like me to deal with that. So if you don't know much about hazardous materials, that's fine. We'll be using the SIM table. I think Supervisor Malera has seen that before. We're the only one in Arizona that has one of these. This is a $30,000 downward projection 3D table where I can do flooding and wildfires and limited amounts of hazardous materials. So we'll be using that as part of the simulation profile. The LEPCs, all levels of the county. The exercise, the meeting will start at 10, and then the exercise will run probably about an hour. And then I've been asked, because the sim table's set up, could I recreate what happened in Lahaina, Hawaii, or anything else that anybody would like to see in terms of a wildfire or limited hazardous materials or a dam break or flooding or whatever it might be. So I've given you the agenda. I'll leave some of the agendas out there. Thursday, 10 o'clock upstairs, public's invited. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sarah.
Thank you, Ray.
Larry Byer and Tiffany George.
Hello,
Hi.
thank you for having us. My name is Lacey Byer. I'm the manager of the fairgrounds. This is Tiffany George.
I did. Sorry, Lisa.
You know who I am, right?
I do know who you are.
This is Tiffany George. She sits on the board of directors as our treasurer. We wanted to just come here and thank you guys for your continued support of the fairgrounds. We're going into our 108th year, and we really pride ourselves as the heart of the community. Every time we have events there, it brings business to our local restaurants, Airbnbs, our wineries, and everybody benefits from those. We've been making a lot of improvements to the fairgrounds. One of the big ones this past year is the grandstands. As you may know, if you've sat in our grandstands, they needed some major improvement. So we've actually fixed the entire grandstands, replaced every single board, and so it was a huge undertaking, but much needed. We've remodeled the women's restroom, and this year we're working on the men's restroom. So we're heading into our busy season. We've passed out some flyers. We've got our Labor Day rodeo coming up September 2nd through 4th. And then the county fair's coming up September 15th through 17th. We've added quite a few events to our fair this year. We're moving the ranch rodeo to the fair. And then we also have the Southern Arizona Cutting Horse Association coming in for a 2-day cutting during our fair. So we're really expanding our fair. We're trying to make it all inclusive, and our theme this year is Life in the Old West. So we're looking forward to seeing what all the kids bring for that. We would love for you guys to come out and see what we've done and come enjoy our events. So thank you so much for your support and for all you've done for us.
Well, thank you for all the work that you do out there.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And sorry I called you Larry.
That's okay.
I'm going to have a conversation with my clerk of the board for not cleaning that handwriting.
Thanks.
This next one she helped me with, and that's Joanne Van Halter. And then after Joanne is going to be Dr. Redpath.
Well, thank you
Good morning.
for allowing me to speak. Good morning. I just would like to say that South 32 is not an American company, and they have a history of just walking away when they're done with their operation and selling the property and leaving the devastation. What would be the cost to Rio Rico and Santa Cruz County in the years to come? And what will the cost be for our health if it is approved? Now, I am not, and people I know are not opposed to development. We just want responsible development that will help us all enjoy our good fortune in living here. Developers who care about people in the future of this area. And thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you very much for coming in. Dr. Redpath? And after Dr. Redpath, Patricia Kwiatkowski?
Starts with a G.
Dr. Lisa Redpath, Camino Cumbre, Rio Rico. Good morning, gentlemen of the board.
Morning.
Today I reach out to you for two reasons. First, I have completed an exhaustive search for specific information about the, quote, six-figure jobs that South 32 has been promising to the county. I wish to know how many there will be, what the job requirements are, and exactly how much the salary will be. Despite my determined efforts, I have been unable to retrieve any such information. Therefore, I turn to you for assistance. If you have this information, can you please post it publicly for all to see? Conversely, if you do not have this information, then I would ask you why you would be partnering with a company that does not put its promises in writing. Second, I stand before you as a grandmother and a veteran teacher of 40 years. It is obvious that I care deeply about young people and education. I know how important it is to have adequate funding for all school programs and how difficult it can be to secure such funds. Nevertheless, I ask you directly, why would you even consider accepting money from a company that tries to seduce communities with colorful backpacks, school supplies, and bells and whistles programs while at the same time potentially poisoning the students? This makes no sense. If you want the public to believe that you are men of integrity, then why are you doing this? What would it take for you to explore other sources of financial support? Why are you continuing on this Faustian journey with South 32? This is my real question. How can I get answers to these legitimate questions? I'm asking.
We can't respond to you. It's called to the public.
I understand that, but considering that we don't get information outside of this forum, I honestly don't know what to do. I'm asking. Can you guide us? As a taxpayer, I have a right to know, as do all of these good people.
Set up an appointment with each of us individually, and then we can talk to you.
Sir, I have tried Mr. Bracker several times, and there's been no effort. I don't know what else to do. I have the phone records, text messages, and unanswered emails as proof that I have reached out for a long time. I have a right to know, and so do they. You know how to find me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Redpath. Patricia? And then Dr. Anita Connor is next.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Patricia Glogowski, and I live in Tubac, Arizona. And I've come to speak about the rezoning. Much of the rezoning would allow industrial development. Our natural environment, our plants, our animals, and our water sources are all threatened. One of the biggest risks is the proposed battery-grade manganese processing plant with hundreds of trucks coming daily from Patagonia mines processing the ore using up to 250 acres in Rio Rico and then transferring the manganese onto trains also here in our community. The problem is manganese and its processing are very, very toxic and could spread through the dust, the fumes, the soil, and water contamination. The health of the plant workers, our families, our children, our neighbors, and community are all at risk. The mining company is promising jobs and help for the schools, but we cannot be distracted by the hype while being deceived about the real and devastating consequences. So much research has shown the dangerous health effects of the manganese, even the manganese dust that will be spread. Do you have children? Do you have grandchildren? Do you live in this area that's going to be affected by all of this? Think about that. And the research shows that the effects on children are much more sensitive. Children are much more sensitive than adults. Please vote for the health of your children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Connor, and the next speaker is Beth Pearl.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Anita Connor, and I live at 409 Camino Canoa in Rio Rico. Despite the withdrawal of the last rezoning plan from Mr. Jackson, it is clear that a manganese processing plant is still a huge risk for Rio Rico, beginning a slippery slope to irrevocable changes to the nature of this precious area with potentially devastating ecological impact, especially to the unique Santa Cruz River Valley and nearby residential and agricultural areas. There would be a huge increase in heavy truck traffic and railroad activity. Despite the assurances given recently by the South 32 Hermosa presentation, deeper research about the risks associated with exposure to manganese is frankly alarming. Effects range from an irreversible Parkinson's-like syndrome that has been clearly linked to manganese exposure to neurotoxic effects in children. And unlike Parkinson's disease, manganism is a syndrome that has no effective medical treatment. Even if South 32 Hermosa does everything in its power to protect people, we know that accidents can and do happen. After the recent toxic train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, an analysis of data from the EPA reveals the stunning finding that accidental chemical releases, either by train derailments, truck crashes, or industrial plant leaks or spills, are occurring across this country on the average of an incident every 2 days. No one can guarantee that Rio Rico would be exempt from such risks. The Board of Supervisors has already accepted money for school projects from South 32, which appears to be a case of buying influence in the community. Is the promise of jobs and increased county revenues worth long-term serious health consequences, depletion of our water supplies, and air, water, light, and noise pollution, and soil contamination? The price is too high. I know we can do better. If industrial zoning is allowed along I-19 in Rio Rico, what other industries with other yet unknown risks could be approved here? Some things once started cannot be undone. And since my professional career was in the medical field, I want to share a phrase from the Hippocratic Oath that I believe applies here to those of you who are our decision makers. And that phrase is, first, do no harm. I beg you to deeply consider that phrase, first, do no harm. And I hope that as our elected decision makers in Santa Cruz County, that each of you, as the Board of Supervisors, look deeply inside yourselves as you fulfill your responsibilities in genuinely representing those who live here and love Rio Rico. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Connor. Beth, and then following Beth, it's Cynthia Colbert.
Good morning, Beth Pearl, Rio Rico Drive, Rio Rico. Thank you for letting us have another opportunity to share our concerns with you. We've done extensive research, many of us, about the effects that South 32, its proposed processing plant, and other activity could pose to Rio Rico as far as risks, environmentally, health, all different things. I wanted to talk a little bit today about South 32's track record around the world. I think last time we met, we were able to give both Bruce and Manny a packet of information. Rudy, you weren't here, so you didn't get one. We'd be happy to send one over to you. South 32, unfortunately, for all their nice words and their good speaking and their slick presentations, has a really difficult track record worldwide, both in Australia, Colombia, South Africa, everywhere they've done activity. I wanted to specifically address today in their home country of Australia, just outside Sydney, there is the Dendrobium coal mine, which has effectively contaminated and potentially devastated drinking water for 5 million inhabitants of Sydney, Australia. They were only checked at the last minute by a council such as yourselves that put a stop to an extension. One of the biggest problems was they were breaking contracts and not playing by the rules and essentially stealing water for 5 years. They paid a $2.9 million fine and then continued with their efforts. They put in danger all of the drinking water catchment outside of Sydney. If they're willing to do that recklessly in their home country, what makes us think it's going to be any different here? So I would urge you to seriously consider their track record, the history, and not necessarily believe that they're going to play by the rules and honor contracts and whatnot, because they do have a history of just paying the fine and moving forward with their plans. This is a unique area. It's special. Its water resources are essential, and they're precious, and they need to be protected at all costs for the health and well-being of not just the environment, but all of us who live here in Rio Rico. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Cynthia Colbert, and following that is Salinas Ruth.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia Colbert. I live in Rio Rico and have lived there for the past 18 years. I'm a teacher, and one of the things that I enjoyed when I first moved here was that the county education department had field trips for teachers to get to know the area. One of the places that we went was the old town of Ruby, which is an old mining town out Ruby Road. It was abandoned in 1940s, but when we went out there, there was a huge pile of tailings, they call it. Asked about the tailings, and that is what they did not need to use for their mining, and it was we don't need it, we're going to put it here. Well, tailings require, let me go into it. They're waste materials left after the target mineral is extracted from the ore. They consist of crushed rock, water, trace quantities of minerals such as copper, mercury, cadmium, zinc, etc. They may be dumped in or near water, and sometimes a dam is created to have the water there for the tailings. They could be transported by wind or water to contaminate the surrounding area. Tailings can be a dangerous source of toxic chemicals, such as heavy metals, sulfides, and radioactive content. This is something we really need to be aware of, because in the presentation at the last meeting that the mine representative gave, he showed a slide of the building where the remote workers were going to be, and next to it was a huge area marked tailings. So if we don't think this is going to not affect our watershed and our life here and the air that we breathe, then we're really being misled. And it was right there in his presentation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Salinas Ruth, and following Salinas is Kazarian. And Kazarian, I'm not going to do your last name. I'm getting there. I got the first name.
Hi. Good morning. My name is Salinas Ruth, and I live at 2074 Pendleton Drive in Rio Rico. I'm an attorney with Global Family Legal Services, and I've served in Arizona for 30 years, half of them in Santa Cruz County. I'm a minister and an advocate with Global Community Communications Alliance. I've represented public and private schools in their legal matters over the years, and I wondered about the donations being given to Santa Cruz County schools by the Hermosa Project. I see on the consent agenda today where intergovernmental agreements with the school districts are now being drawn up. I question this whole procedure and process as possibly being unlawful. I've written to the Arizona Department of Education and spoken to their staff about this matter. I expect to hear back soon from their legal department. As I wrote in part, And this is what I wrote. My question is concerning the authority of the superintendent of schools in our county being able to lawfully receive money, as it is doing, to offer classes promoting the South 32 Hermosa project. The website for the superintendent's office states they will comply with policies and regulations set by the Arizona Department of Education. Could you please let me know if the actions of the superintendent are outside the policies and regulations set by the ADE? And if so, what can we do to mitigate this effect? So today, I'm asking you to please consider removing these intergovernmental agreements with the schools in this district from your consent agenda. You can pause this approval very easily and early and look further into it. Please do not just stamp an approval of items 7, 8, 9, and 10 on the consent agenda today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Kazarian?
Bugs,
How you
Manny,
doing?
Good morning.
Bruce. Good morning. My name's Kazarian, Gene Angelo. I live at Avalon Organic Gardens in Eco Village. That's up at the end of Pendleton Drive, 2074. Hold on a sec. I haven't just gave my thing. So can you roll that back a couple seconds? Because I got a tight 3 minutes here. Thank you. Distinguished supervisors of the board, I've come this morning to address 3 different topics on the agenda. First, Operation Stone Garden. I do not object to our local law enforcement receiving federal funding from the Department of Homeland Security, especially if those funds are being used to compensate the brave men and women who so diligently keep our communities safe. However, I do object to the use of those funds to weaponize and militarize our local law enforcement. Santa Cruz County is moving toward a more sustainable, nature-based economy. We must be more welcoming and accepting of people who want to experience the magic of this land that we live in. The towering, rusty balusters, the razor wire, the border fence, it all represents separation and apartheid. Nogales, Arizona will not emerge from its economic depression so long as it languishes in fear under domestic military occupation. So in short, ain't nobody want to go shopping in a war zone. Next, I'd like to address the funds from South 32, which the board recently approved, despite the overwhelming opposition from their constituents. Mining is inherently destructive. It consists of taking from the earth without giving the earth anything in return. When I was growing up, my father was an organic gardener and farmer, and he taught me the importance of giving to the land and the abundance you receive from the land when you give back to Mother Nature. Look, I like robots, I like robotics. I think it's a fascinating industry and what is in our future. And who doesn't like the clever play of words of the technologicas? I definitely believe that more women need to be in the science field, but I also feel like the money that South 32 has given could go to more effective means of education. So I encourage all of you to be more brave and demanding of companies like South 32 that their money should educate students to solve the environmental complications that are coming attendant with mining and restoring health in the aftermath of this company's greed. Unfortunately, we need preemptive reparations. Lastly, I'd like to address the issue of the electrical transmission lines connecting the Hermosa mine project to the power grid. I realize these power lines have already been approved by the Arizona Corporation Commission, and in some ways your hands are tied. However, I would encourage the board to make it as difficult as possible for this project to proceed. Bugs, I know you love riding on those roads, and those power lines are definitely going to affect the enjoyability and the beauty of that location. South 32 and other mining companies claim to be sustainable, yet they are pursuing conventional methods of providing power to their operations. A truly sustainable operation would develop a way to supply power off the grid. This is case in point that South 32 is not nearly as sustainable as they say they are. And if they're so smart as to know how the water table will respond to 24-hour pumping and drilling, they certainly should be smart enough to figure out how to generate their own power on site. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody online that would like to address the board? Just raise your hand. Norma?
Dampier.
Dampier. Ms. Norma, ready?
Hi, this is Norma Dampier. I live on Camino Josefina in Rio Rico. I'm sure South 32 has said there are no strings attached to their generous monetary donations to the schools. However, they probably didn't disclose there were chains attached. South 32's strategy is much like that of a drug dealer. Let's get everyone hooked and dependent on our goods so they can't refuse us and so that they keep coming back for more. But South 32 is a dirty drug dealer. They go after the kids. Their strategy is, let's give the schools lots of money. That way, those who are against us doing this look like the bad guys. South 32's strategy is to pit members of the community against each other. What's going to happen when South 32 stops supplying the schools with money? Because this will happen at some point. What will the withdrawal symptoms look like? Do you have a plan for when your drug dealer stops supplying you? South 32 is running the perfect strategy. If you say no to the money that's going to help the kids, you're the bad guy. It takes the focus off South 32, how they actually make their money, and all the bad things that happen to the people that work for them in their mining operations. You take their money based on your emotions. You want to help the kids. Is there a checklist you use to make an impartial and emotional decision when it comes to matters like this? Can you truly say without a doubt that you can make a totally impartial decision when South 32 comes to this board with plans to build a manganese ore processing plant in Santa Cruz County? When South 32 wants to do anything, what's the checklist on how you'll make the decision so it won't look like you're making it based on your need for school money? Wouldn't it be easier to make decisions based on ethical standard criteria instead of making decisions based on your emotions and the need for money? Unless you come up with clear-cut criteria on how you make decisions on development and zoning, it will look like you make decisions based on perceived obligations. Because when South 32 comes up with their plan on building a processing plant that will potentially have major health consequences for current and future generations, can you honestly say that you won't think about all the money they've been giving the kids? If I were you, I'd be pissed. South 32 is putting you in an extremely difficult position and making it virtually impossible to say no without upsetting a ton of parents. Would a company that really cares about the community, as they claim, put you and the community in that position? Just like a drug dealer, South 32 is not your friend. A real friend wouldn't put you in a no-win situation. This county needs to be in control of its destiny, not South 32. The county needs to develop its own strategy and start weaning itself off of South 32's generosity. Because at some point, the money will stop, and the county needs to be prepared for that. Santa Cruz County needs to be controlled and break free of the chains. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anybody else online who would like to address the board? If you could just raise your hand. You need to fill out a speaker slip, sir. And you can give it to the clerk. Is there anybody else online?
I don't see anybody.
Emmanuel, do you see anybody?
No one else online.
Okay. Dr. Redpath, can you ask the gentleman outside to ask him to come in? Because we're about to end call to the public. You can finish filling out your slip later, but please do so and give it to the clerk. You'll have to identify yourself.
Good morning, sir. My name is Joe Watkins. I live in Rio Rico.
Joe?
1194 Prima Court.
I didn't hear your name.
Watkins, Joe Watkins.
Joe Watkins. Thank you, Mr. Watkins.
My concern is about the near criminality of this corporation that we're dealing with, South 32. Much of their exploits around the world are very questionable, especially their management of manganese dust and its impact on indigenous people. They seem to disrespect low-income peoples, and I'm not sure what they're trying to do with us yet. They seem to be making all the right decisions or all the right promises, but I'm not sure that they have a history of following through. As a psychotherapist, we learn that his people are their history. And unfortunately, in this country, corporations are now considered people. But corporations are their history. And I think you need to keep that very much in mind. They've had problems in couple of South American countries and problems in South Africa with illustrated on that video, Manganese Road. It's very impactful, and they're currently having problems in their own home country, Australia. So keep that in mind. People and corporations are their history. They don't change.
Thank you. If you could fill out your speaker slip and give it to the clerk, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody else in the room who'd like to address the board? And anybody else online? Okay, we'll move on to current events. From the Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Valera.
Mr. Chair, good morning. I have 2 items to report. One, I met with Mayor George Maldonado and local Meadow Hills resident, and the topic of discussion was Meadow Hills golf range and their clubhouse. They are throwing up ideas on doing a public-private partnership. And secondly, I was honored to attend, along with Supervisor Reese, the Teacher of the Year, sponsored by the school superintendent's office. I know Maya's the only one here representing that office. Your staff and Alfredo always hit it out of the park. It's an amazing event, and I want to commend and congratulate you. Thank you. And that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you very much. Vice Chairman Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we can't forget the Rotary Club, Rudy. They're the ones that sponsor.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
That sponsor that, and the school superintendent does. And congratulations to the Patagonia School District for the runner-up, and Santa Cruz 35 for the Teacher of the Year award that she received on Friday. So it was a wonderful program. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Okay, well, I better fill in the gaps here. I attended virtually an ADOT grant teams meeting working on the East Frontage Road. It's part of the solution to alleviate the issue at Ruby Road. And so we're working on a grant, 2 different grants to work on expanding the East Frontage Road all the way through to I-19. I attended the ribbon cutting at the Mariposa Clinic in Tubac. I'd like to thank County Manager Valdez for attending that with me. They opened up a new clinic in La Entrada Plaza. It's a great facility. Let's see, the next one was, the county was submitted and was rejected for a RAISE grant. We're trying to build the Ruby Road grade separated crossing over Potrero Creek and the railroad. So what this meeting was is for them to go over our grant with us and talk to us about where we fell short. So when we apply next year, we'll have a better shot at getting it. So it was an interesting conversation. The Port Authority held a retreat this past Saturday in Tubac.
Chairman?
No.
Nope.
Manager.
That would be manager. That'd be legal if either one of you guys came with me, but thanks for offering. The manager, Valdez, was also part of that. It was really a review of what had gone on in the past year and laying out strategies for what Port Authority was going to go after and work on in the coming years. And then, if I can read my handwriting. I can't read my handwriting. I can read it. Been speaking to a lot of constituents about South 32 and the Rico rezoning. Those phone calls continue to come into me, so happy to answer any questions that I can when I can do those things. And then the International Water Boundary Commission had an IOI manhole inspection. It's the final phase of their project, so they've completed the IOI refurbishing and the refurbishing of all the manholes. So Manager Valdez and also Leonard Fuentes were out there yesterday afternoon with me. We went through a few of the inspections of manholes. It's pretty interesting, and it's a great,
Bless you.
good bless you. And it's just a great project, and it's great to see that completed for our community. And that's what I have to report on. And we'll move to the manager.
And for the record, I know you didn't mention it, but you're one of the key persons that spearheaded that project, and I commend you. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, that's it. Manager Valdez.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I just want to report on two events that I attended. I attended the Teacher of the Year reception. I was well attended, and it was really fun, so I congratulate everybody involved. I also attended the Port Authority board retreat. Was on Saturday, where we discussed our regional projects. Very informative. Thank you.
Okay, item E, department reports and activities, finance, cash, investment, expenditures, and revenues. Mr. Chavez, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Good morning,
Morning.
The cash and investment report. The general fund has an overall balance of 17,534,642, with an investment amount of 14,889,000. The road fund has an overall balance of 1,647,124, with an investment amount of 7,299. The flood control district fund has an overall balance of 1,028,670, with an investment amount of $276,435. The jail district has an overall balance of 3,796,701, with an investment amount of just a little bit over $1 million. Total for all funds, overall balance is 58,901,880, with an investment amount of $18,099,998, for an estimated end of the month balance of $13,095,871.
Okay, thank you very much. Some of these things are being impacted by sales tax, 3 of those districts.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, they are correct.
And if we look at, there's been some articles and some talk about a strong peso affecting commerce in our community. So the last 3 months.
We see the trend that our sales tax has been increasing. That is correct, due to those impacts.
Okay, that's great. Any other questions?
No, sir.
The peso will continue to be strong. We've seen the effects when it goes the other way, right?
Yes, we have.
Great. No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I will move then that we recess and convene to the jail district.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 1, discussion possible action for authorization to fill vacant detention corporal position.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? This is a budgeted item?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we adjourn our jail district and reconvene regular session.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 1, discussion possible action to approve and adopt proclamation designating August 25th through August 31st, 2023 as Overdose Awareness Week and August 31st, 2023 as Overdose Awareness Day.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. And under discussion, I'm going to read the proclamation.
Go ahead.
Whereas overdose has ravaged our entire country, general emphasis before was ambiguous as best, geared towards showing the risk and substance abuse and the punishments associated with consumption of the illicit. However, as this is written, more than 130 Americans lose their lives to opioids daily. In an age so advanced, one life is too many. During Overdose Awareness Week, we renew our commitment to taking bold action to prevent overdose-related deaths, and whereas the front line of our border, our agency's continued efforts to enhance prevention, harm reduction, treatment, and recovery support services for individuals with substance and use disorders and addiction. We affirm our duty daily to work together towards solutions that bring our community together and end overdose deaths. And whereas the overdose epidemic has evolved, synthetic opioids now drive most of the overdose deaths in our community. Nationally, in 2022, more than 100,000 people died from an overdose, an ugly increase from the previous year. In Santa Cruz County, we've fared no different. Nogales and Rio Rico have reported overdoses in 2023, leaving many in our agencies feeling as if we are losing the battle. And when one is too many, we clearly are not getting the message out fast enough. And whereas as a community, we are committed to changing how we help people with substance use disorders in a variety of ways, we are working to expand access to high-impact harm reduction interventions like naloxone, an opioid overdose reversal medication, and to remove barriers to effective treatment. To combat stigma, we have developed multiple stations in all corners of Santa Cruz County to provide 24/7 access to Narcan, no questions asked. And whereas we address the underlying factors leading to the substance use disorders and addiction, we are working to address societal norms and stigma that can keep our brothers and sisters from accessing the help they need. Providers are available more and more and continue to stay informed on the needs of our struggling community. These are important, helpful, and informed steps, but we know more work lies ahead. Whereas this is why we need to support the work of coalitions like SOSA, which is comprised of over 20 community organizations working together towards community-based solutions to end overdose deaths. Overdose Awareness Week is a time to remember those tragically lost to overdose and the pain of the families who are left behind, but it is also an opportunity to recommit to work together to build safe, healthy, resilient communities. We can save more American lives by adopting evidence-based approaches to reducing overdose risks and lowering barriers to treatment and support. Your continued support is appreciated now and more than ever. And now, therefore, the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors do hereby proclaim August 25th through August 31st, 2023 as Overdose Awareness Week and call upon citizens, government agencies, civil society organizations, healthcare providers, businesses, educational institutions to raise awareness of substance use disorder and combat stigmatization, promote treatment and celebrate recovery, and strengthen our collective efforts to prevent overdose deaths. August 31st also marks Overdose Awareness Day, on which we honor and remember those who have lost their lives to the drug overdose epidemic. Proclaimed and adopted this 15th day of August 2023, Rudy Muller, member, Manuel Reese, Vice Chairman, and Bruce Bracker, Chairman.
Is that a motion?
Any other discussion?
No, we already moved.
Oh, we
and
did.
seconded.
Okay.
That was it under discussion.
Sorry.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item H, consent agenda. Are there any items that anybody would like to remove?
I just have a question, Mr. Chairman of Legal. So you have reviewed all the MOUs that are here, and did you find anything that would cause your office to put a red flag on it?
No, Supervisor.
So they all meet the letter of the law?
They do. They comply. Actually, all of the items, MOUs, IGAs, actually help protect the county. So that's the importance of those particular agreements between the various school districts, school systems, as well as anything else.
Great.
So,
Thank you, Bob.
Bob, and items 7, 8, 9, and 10, those are all agreements between the county and the school districts, correct?
yes, sir. And again, to help protect the county, they established the guidelines on both parts, both parties. So.
Okay.
Great, good. Move to approve consent agenda as posted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned.